Right behind the shoulder. Good shot.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You got him. Colton, you got him. He's on the ground.
Look at him.
He's on the ground. You got him.
Yes.
So for most people, when they think of legacy, they're thinking of continuing a legacy that their father or maybe grandfather instilled in their family and brought in. For me, hunting was something that I would have to start in my family. Now, my father and grandfathers did hunt. I just didn't have an opportunity to do that with them when I was a kid. So when I got into the firearm industry and started hunting myself, I knew that it was something that I wanted to do with my kids. Several years ago, when the kids were very small, I took them hunting over in eastern Montana, and we hiked for many miles and wound up shooting a nice mule deer. But the truth of that is I was on YouTube the night before looking at how to field dress a deer. I didn't actually know how to actually do it. And I'm not ashamed to say that. I tell people that. I don't brag about it, but I tell people that because I want them to understand that hunting can be an intimidating thing when you think about getting into it, because like, how do I do this? Most people don't even know how to mount a scope on a rifle, let alone zero it and successfully get an animal on the ground and then, of course, field dress it. When Colton got to an age where it was like, okay, he's going to be able to handle the rifle on his own and hunt, we decided to head up to the wilds of Montana opening weekend and see if we could find a deer or an elk. And in Montana, what a lot of people don't realize, it's a lot different than hunting down in Texas, where we also do a lot of hunting. In Montana, you're going to hike several miles. You need to be prepared with gear and for any type of weather. And of course, we have grizzly bears, in particular the area that we're hunting near Canada. My daughter was adamant this year, after getting her first deer last year, she was adamant this year that she wanted to hunt in Montana on foot, hiking and doing all that stuff. And so we did it. We couldn't get the deal done, so I wound up booking a flight for my son, and he came with me on one of my trips down to Texas, and we completed his journey there. So for the trip, I actually built two rifles for Colton. One was for the deer, a 6mm Creedmoor. It was Ulfidnar chassis, Falcor 7 action, Helix 6 precision, carbon fiber barrel, AB suppressor, TriggerTech trigger, and a Leupold optic. Now the rifle itself that we used from the blind, very, about a 12-pound rifle, not ideal to be walking around with, but because we were hunting from a blind, I put that together because it settles down faster. It sits very firm. You don't get a lot of movement when you're breathing or you're excited. So that was the deer rifle that I built, and I also built a AR for him for this trip, which was a next level elite match precision set. Again, a Helix 6 precision 223 wild barrel, and we had an Armacite contractor thermal on top of that one because we knew we were going to be doing a lot of varminting as well. Colton had two objectives on this trip. He really wanted to get a deer, and if he got the deer early enough, he wanted to also get a javelina. He shot hogs before on previous trips, and that's a whole nother experience when you do thermal and night vision hunting. And guys out there that have hunted for years go out and try and thermal hunt and night vision. It's a completely different environment. and he's had success doing that. So I built a rifle for him for this trip.
That's on the dot.
Is it on the dot?
Yep. You want to look?
Right on the dot?
Right on it. My name is Colton Walker, and I'm from Kalispell, Montana. I'm most looking forward to getting my first buck. I think it's going to be an awesome experience. My sister got one, and she said it was amazing, so I'm looking forward to that the most.
You know, for him, of course, you know, he's young and he wanted to outdo his sister. He wanted to get a bigger buck than what she got last year. He was very prepared mentally. He knew what he wanted to do. He's fairly proficient with the firearm, and we went out and got into the blind.
So today's Sunday. We get up, we get into the blind, and I just really need to get my deer. So we sit there for maybe 15 minutes, and we just start seeing like 12 deer coming into the road. 8 of them are bucks. So we're like, okay, let's get this set up and pick one out. So we see this deer, and he's just exactly what I'm looking for. He's like he has perfectly symmetrical antlers, and they're really thick. He's a good sized deer, lots of meat. Yeah, we're just waiting there for like, I don't know, 20 minutes, waiting for all these other deer to get out of his way so we can get a clean shot. When they finally do, I'm just shaking all over the place, so I'm like, I can't take this shot right now. So we wait like another 20 minutes before I actually shoot. And when I shot and I heard it hit, I'm like losing my mind. I'm so excited.
Yeah. You got him. Colton, you got him. He's on the ground.
Look at him.
He's on the ground. You got him.
Yes.
I heard that report. You know, that 6mm Creed. I can't say enough good things about that particular caliber. It sounds like a loud pellet rifle when it goes off, in part because of that AB suppressor that we have on there, and you really hear the report when it hits the target. And we did, and of course, you know, visually you saw that deer just hit the ground, and I mean, you can hear an audible laugh from him, and it was incredible.
When I walked up to the deer, I was just ecstatic. I was super excited because it's my first deer. Can't do anything but be excited. Yeah, I definitely beat Bo.
My hopes for Colton in the future hunting, actually, I'm seeing it right now. He's already talking about his next hunt, you know, what he wants to do next. So both the kids are talking about hunting and doing more hunting, from wing shooting, duck shooting, to varmints, to whatever. For Colton, the way that it worked out on that hunt was, he told me as we were flying down there, you know, Dad, you know, of course he really wanted to get a deer, but also really high on his list was getting a javelina. It was funny, immediately after, I mean, literally immediately after he shoots his deer, we're looking at the deer and he says, Dad, do you think we can get a javelina next? And I'm like, well, gee whiz, I'd like to see a unicorn tonight, but the chances of that are pretty slim. It just happened to work out that we went back to that blind that evening. He said, Dad, I see a javelina in the woods. Now with a thermal, you can actually see through trees and you can see animals. For me, and for most people, it's very difficult to distinguish the difference between a pig and a javelina, but he was certain it was javelina. Of course, I'm like, well, he wants it to be, so that's why he thinks it's a javelina. Even with the binoculars, I couldn't really see until the thing stepped out on the road, and sure enough, it was actually a javelina. And he shot it, and literally almost exactly the same spot that he shot his deer that evening. So he got his javelina and his deer on within the same day, And subsequently, we woke up at about 4 the next morning, went duck hunting, and he got one of his first ducks ever as well. So it turned out to be quite an epic hunting trip for Colton, none of which would have ever happened if I didn't have friends like Darren Jones and Leroy Gonzalez to make sure that we were having a good experience out there. So it was epic. Again, there's a lot of emphasis right now on the rifle that we used and the places that we went and so on. What I don't want to lose sight of, and what I want the most important thing, the most important underlying message of this to be is, you don't have to, first of all, you don't have to grow up hunting and fishing to go out and start hunting and fishing as an adult. And you don't have to grow up hunting and fishing or hunt and fish as an adult to start teaching your kids. You can learn together. So legacy, the most important aspect of this is that a legacy begins with you. And in my mind, I knew that the legacy was going to begin from me for my children. That's where that legacy was going to begin. And I know that from the experiences that we've had, both positive and negative, they've not always been winners. We've had some tough situations when we've been out hunting here in Montana and also elsewhere, that all collectively work to build character and instill in the kids the concept of winning and losing and how to deal with it. So it's much more, it's much bigger than just getting an animal on the ground. And in today in particular, with all the stuff going around, with shortages taking place from COVID and all these different things we've had to deal with, self-sufficiency, self-sustaining, the ability to know that if there's nothing in the meat market, and we've all experienced going to the store now and seeing shortages, that they could go out and take care of themselves. That is the legacy that I'm trying to instill in my kids.